Welcome, YouTube, to Motorcycle Time. This is your host, Joey Bear. And today we are out on the KLR 650. We're going to go for a bumpy back road vlog ride. And we are going to talk about what makes motorcycles cool. What makes a motorcycle cool? Why is a motorcycle cool? Why is one bike cool and another bike not cool? And we're going to do this while we're riding one of the bikes that I think would be a contentious choice, right? A lot of people would say this bike is uncool. This bike is for nerds. If you ride one of these, you're slow. If you ride one of these, you're a dork. Fair. Also, I would suggest that one of these bikes or another dual sport bike like this one are some of the coolest bikes you could possibly ride. Anyway, let's get into that. Now, today we were going to talk about what makes a motorcycle cool. And I think that really is a big debate, and it's a very personal choice, and it's very much like a vibes thing, right? Some people are going to think motorcycles are cool because they do a specific task. They go real fast, they go to the racetrack, maybe they look a certain way, whatever it is, and they're going to have their version of what's cool. And that's okay. That's a good thing. I think that's important. I think that's why there's so many kinds of motorcycles, why there's so many viable motorcycles in the market, why there's so many people that ride different kinds of motorcycles in different ways. And I think that's part of it. Like, motorcycling is a tool in a toolbox. A motorcycle is just a tool that accomplishes a job. And the real debate is whether or not it's accomplishing the job you want it to do, and whether by doing that it's a satisfying experience for you. Maybe you're a commuter and your level of satisfaction needs to be that the bike gets me to work, it's relatively comfortable, it doesn't take a lot of maintenance, it's reliable, it starts every time, I can ride it in whatever commuting conditions I have, and it works for me. And that's what makes it cool. That's what makes the bike good. And that's great. That's fantastic. For others, maybe their bike is a pleasure vehicle, right? They're just getting pleasure from riding it. So, yeah, we're going to take it a little easy. You saw the SUVs. They weren't. Maybe it's a pleasure vehicle, and they're just getting pleasure from riding it. They don't need it for commuting. Well, that's going to have a different set of standards, because the standards for a commuter vehicle might be very different than what your standards for an entertainment vehicle might be. Some people need the bike to be big and powerful, big engine, maybe flashy, right? Maybe like a Harley type thing where it's got a lot of fairings and it's real pretty. It's got, lots of stuff going on it. Maybe it's like a Ducati or whatever, and it's a super bike and it's got to go real fast, but those are kind of extremes, right? And I don't want to tell you that those aren't good bikes or that you wouldn't have a good time riding one of those bikes. You probably would. Thank you, bro. I probably would. But is that necessary to have a good time? And because a bike isn't one of those, is it still cool? And I have a really hard time with this, because I have this attitude where most bikes are cool, in my opinion. Road can't be that bad, right? We got these little SUVs out here and they haven't died yet, so I wonder if that's why it's closed, is because they were doing some patching. Look at all this gravel out here, buddy. Burp. Break that back wheel loose. You got to be careful with this thing. It doesn't have any of the features. So if you break the back wheel loose, that's on you. Man, lots of sandy, gravelly crap all over the road too. I love it. Definitely let me feel a little bit like I'm not completely a street boy for just a second. I know a lot of the actual off-roaders are laughing because this is definitely not off-road. But, I'm having fun. Oh, yeah. See what I'm saying about dual sports, man? They're so cool. Okay, maybe you are the kind of person who needs a vintage motorcycle, right? You need an older bike. It's got to be vintage. It's got to be bespoke. It's got to be more rare, right? It can't be just a standard model that lots of people have. That's not right for you. And that's cool, too. So, in terms of what makes a bike cool in the sense that it's vintage or bespoke, usually it's the rareness, right? A bike that's rare. Other people don't have that bike, and so that's why it's cool. And I get that. That makes a lot of sense. Rare bikes are cool. Now, again, back to the KLR, or other bikes like the KLR, where a company's been making it for like a long time. There's several versions of it out. It's 1 million years old. It's got whatever other thing about it. There's millions of them out there is my point, though. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of these units for sale. So, and there's lots of other bikes like that. The KLR is just one example of that. This is great. Okay, so let's see. We covered bespoke motorcycles, we covered fast motorcycles, and flashy, expensive, new motorcycles versus used. We should talk about that. Some people have to have a new motorcycle. It's got to be new. If it's used, it doesn't do it for them. And I can understand that to a degree. I don't share that sentiment, but I can understand it. They want it to be theirs, not somebody else's. So a lot of people don't like a used motorcycle because they think that they want it new, they want it theirs. They want to be the one to put the miles on it. They want to be the one to put the scratches on it, and that's great. And then other people feel like, oh no, I'm perfectly happy riding a used motorcycle. That way I don't have to worry when I scratch it, because if somebody else already scratched it first. And that's great too. And I think both of those attitudes are fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Both are cool. Those are cool. Because they're cool to you. That's what's important. Because really, in the end, that's what all of this boils down to. It boils down to what's cool to you. What makes you have the jollies? What makes you excited to go ride? What makes you excited to participate in this hobby? Because this is an awesome hobby, and it has a variety of different ways that you can participate in it. Let's talk about another thing that I think is important when it comes to motorcycling, and especially in regard to ego, where some people feel like they need to ride fast, or they need to do stunting, or they need to do like extreme off-road, or something else in order to be motorcycling. Things like riding a scooter, or wearing lots of safety gear and being all safety conscious and whatnot, or riding a mini bike, or maybe other stuff too. Certainly riding a small displacement motorcycle is often kind of given this idea as well. And that's that you're more safety concerned than fun concerned. And you're so caught up in the safety aspects, like right here, that you lose the entertainment aspects. And I can understand how someone might feel that way, tractoring right up that hill. These are tight. I am taking it real slow because of cars. Mostly because of cars. I'm sure the bike could go much faster around those corners. Okay, so we were talking about scooters, mini bikes, and small displacement bikes, and the ego problems that sometimes people face when they maybe would want to ride those, but because of the environment they live in, or where they were raised, or how they were raised, or who their friends are, that's why I say environment you live in, the people you're around, maybe it's hard for them to ride that stuff and not get made fun of, and there's that ugly peer pressure that you don't want but you have to deal with. Now, it's very easy for me to sit here and tell you, oh, you just ignore those people and ride what you want, don't worry about them. And that is my ultimate advice. It absolutely is, without a doubt. However, I also understand that sometimes you don't start out that way. Sometimes you start out with your ego first, and you're like, well, I want to ride a certain kind of bike, and that's all I care about. And then it takes you a while of motorcycling to learn that maybe that wasn't actually as important to you as you thought, or it didn't yield you the kind of outcomes that you thought it would. It didn't give you the kind of yummy, or maybe it's just so impractical that it's ridiculous. Oof. Boom. And those are all possibilities. Get my dome down so that it doesn't whistle. All right. So let's see, we were talking about mini bikes and ego. And yes, it's very easy to have ego problems when it comes to your motorcycling, because if your friends ride bigger, faster bikes, if they ride expensive Harleys, if they're riding sport bikes with their race track suits and all that stuff, or if they're like, motocross bros and they've got all the motocross kit, it can feel really like a lot of pressure to want to keep up and ride like they ride. And this is where it's the most important that it ever is to ride your own ride and do your own thing. And that, like I said, that can be really hard. I don't want to sit here and tell you it's easy, that, oh, you don't need to worry that you'll never feel peer pressure. You don't need to worry that your, friends are going to call you, a soft boy or a pussy or whatever other fucking nonsense that they're going to tell you. Oh, you do because you're not doing the thing. Man, if you die on your motorcycle or you crash and you get hurt real bad, I don't really give a crap if you were riding a Ducati or if you were riding a Grom. It doesn't really matter. What matters is your fun is over. It's over. That's all you get. Let's finish our discussion about what makes motorcycles cool. We were kind of talking about larger displacement bikes and smaller displacement bikes, or mini bikes, scooters, etc. Things that might potentially make you feel like you're not as, you know, manly or as cool as the other kids, because you're not riding a big, fast, sporty bike like they are, and so that hurts your feelings. Bikes like the KLR, dual sports, and things like that, I think they're cool because they allow you to ride in a lot of different places on a lot of different terrain, and they allow you to do some different stuff than you might otherwise do. You might otherwise be able to on a pure street bike. And so I'm not saying, you know, you'd want to necessarily take your KLR to the racetrack, although I'm sure people have. But you also don't necessarily want to take your sport bike on roads like this one. When you ride the right motorcycle for the right type of riding that you're doing, it already is funner than if you weren't doing that. See what I mean by going slow? It's already funner than if you weren't doing that. By riding the right type of bike for the conditions that you're riding in, you're already going to be having more fun. And in my opinion, the more fun you're having, the cooler the whole situation is. So I don't know, maybe you don't agree with any of that. Maybe you think that take is kind of silly. And if you do think it's silly, why don't you put that in the comments section? If you agree with me, well, maybe put that in the comments section. Leave a comment, tell me what you think. What makes a bike cool? What bikes are cool to you?